What's that like? What's going on out there, people? Hey, it's another episode of the What's That Like podcast. I'm your host, John Knowles, here to talk to another fascinating guest and ask him what's that like to be Zach Wygal. Zach is a guy that if you live in Montgomery County, Illinois, it's at least a name you're familiar with. Zach is certainly somebody that I've known for the last 3 or 4 years through a lot of the work he's done with an organization that he started in honor of his father called Stamp Out Cancer. And he'll talk a little bit about that in the interview. What we're going to talk to him about today is a couple of the other organizations he's involved with. Number one is Imagine Hillsborough. Imagine Hillsborough is an organization that's really there to help grow, promote, and really improve the city of Hillsborough. He'll tell you how that got started and everything they're doing. One of the things that he also does during the summers helps to promote what they call the Hillsborough Summer Concert Series. It's one of those things that's really become kind of a staple here in the central Illinois area for a lot of folks to attend. What they do is they bring in a lot of outside acts, a lot of acts that play original music. This is not something you're going to go see a lot of cover bands at, but it's something that continues to grow and grow and grow. And Zach's going to tell you all about that, including probably his cornerstone act of the year is, again, Steve Ewing from The Urge in St. Louis, a huge St. Louis band. Steve Ewing, the lead singer, and he's got another band coming in with Steve that I think you're going to want to hear all about as well. So we're going to talk a lot to Zach about all those things, plus a fundraiser they've got coming up called Music Buffs Unite, a trivia night to help raise some funds for the Hillsborough Concert Series. And then we're just going to get into some conversation. He's one of these guys that's got a lot going on. He actually asked my band Retro Rocket last year to play a parade on a float, and it was one of the most fun times he's ever had, and he'll talk a little bit about that as well. It was a riot. So before we get started with Zach, I want to thank everyone here in Mount Olive, where I live, specifically the Focus 5 group. This is the Friends of Community Unit School District number 5. Hosted a trivia night for them the other night. Had about 180 people in attendance. It was a lot of fun for me. I hope everybody who was in attendance had a lot of fun, and I know they raised a lot of money to help out the school district here in Mount Olive. It was a fun night. We did some music, some pop culture, a couple of other different categories that I've probably never done the trivia night before, but it was a lot of fun nonetheless. So I want to thank all you folks that came out there and maybe got to know that I had a podcast and gave me a like that night. So thank you all if you're listening today. I really appreciate that for helping me grow the audience. With that being said, anytime you can help spread the word on the What's That Like podcast, I am much appreciative. Like I've said before, I do this for fun. I do it for free. There is nothing that costs you anything to listen to it except maybe the data that you've got on your phone that you download. But if you do it over Wi-Fi, completely free. Download the episodes while you're at home on Wi-Fi. Listen to them later in the car. A lot of people listen to podcasts in the car while they're working out, while they're doing stuff around the house. Plenty of different mediums to do it. We're even on YouTube. So if you go to ATA Network on YouTube, that's youtube.com/ATA Network. That's Bobby Krug's YouTube network. And he helps me out on this podcast by promoting my show on his channel. So help him out a little bit. He's got some advertising over there. And maybe when you download it, he gets a nickel or something. But certainly want to thank Bob again for hosting the show on his network as well. So why don't I do this? I'll stop talking and get a guy in here that's doing everything he can to improve his hometown. And say, Zach Wygal, what's that like? Zach Wygal here from Hillsborough, Illinois. Zach, how you doing, buddy?
I am wonderful. Yeah. Super wonderful.
You just thrilled to be here in my garage
talking
I am
actually,
podcast.
I was kind of really pumping myself up, excited, to get here. And then when I finally showed up to Studio 312, I'm blown away. I'm actually even more pumped to be sitting here talking.
Well, you should be. You're only the 5th guest here on the What's That Like podcast. So.
Oh, I love being number 5.
Yeah, well, you got it. So,
good.
So tell me about Zach Wygal growing up, Hillsborough, Illinois, Montgomery County. What was Zach like?
I talked a lot. I was a ham. So go figure on that. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, really, I was I was a pretty good student, all those things. I always wanted to actually be in radio and television. Really? Yes. That was actually my goal. I remember I had a picture of David Letterman above my bed. I don't know, but I moved around. Like I was in Hillsborough till 2nd grade. Then I moved to Nokomis for about 4 years and came back in 7th grade. And yeah, graduated from lovely Hillsborough High School.
Go Toppers.
Go Toppers.
Yeah. Then you went to college where?
I went to Southern Illinois University at Carbondale for radio and television. The weirdest thing is I was there and I was liking it for about a year or two. And then I really started diving deep into what radio and television is all about. And I started to just despise it. First it was television. And because we could be a part of the PBS station there, and they had the River Region Evening News, which actually goes all the way to Greenville, like the student-led, produced news station. And I remember my first knockdown with that was that I signed up for a job, and it was to be honestly, I forgot the name, but all I had to do was flip a switch to go into commercial. That was it. My job was just to move a switch.
That means you're an associate producer.
I think that's what it was. It was pretty esteemed position. But when it comes to like television, what I found out was because we write like news copy and stuff like that is a lot of the news is just depressing. I mean, it was ambulance chasing and I didn't see maybe like at the end, they're like, okay, here's our positive story of the day, but the rest is just death and destruction.
Correct. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if I really want to keep doing this. So then I was like, radio is fun. I've always liked radio. But then I read my dad got me for Christmas one year the Wolfman Jack biography called Have Mercy. And I don't know if you know a lot about Wolfman Jack.
I know Wolfman Jack. I'm old enough to know Wolfman Jack.
But I mean, he had some of the most amazing stories as a DJ. I mean, having shootouts in Mexico, like outside the station, because people were trying to take over a station because he could broadcast all throughout almost the United States. They had those really powerful signals.
Yeah, syndicated all over.
And so, and he kept talking about how he got to play whatever he wanted. And he'd be like, he would introduce a lot of the culture to like a lot of the black musicians he brought to the forefront, even when they were telling him not to. But he didn't care. He was like kind of like a pirate radio. He was like a founding father of pirate radio. And so then I look at our radio, how it is now, or even then, this is back in like, early 2000s. It's like payola was happening, which is the pay for play. It's like, well, I don't know if I want to do that either, because if I can't go on there and introduce people to music that I really like, that I think people should be listening to, then what's the point? I mean, I feel like a fraud if I'm just up there okay, here's the latest Britney Spears track. Isn't it awesome? I'm not saying I don't like being told what to do, but it's more of, I don't know, it was frustrating. So at that point, I just kind of just coasted my way through college and got what they call a university studies degree. Okay. And which was basically, here's a degree. Will you please leave here? Because you have been here for way too long. Like, way too long. I mean, that was a good 7 years, I think I was living in Carbondale. But I loved it. I mean, Carbondale's it's a fun town. And it's a great music scene and all that stuff. So when I was done, I was like, you know what? I'll do what most people did, is I looked for a job. And the first thing I could get was substitute teaching. And I went in to I remember the first time I ever got called, because all you need is a bachelor's degree for subbing, and the first time I ever got called was for special education, and I almost turned it down because I was like, I remember those kids in high school and in grade school, and they were always like, they pushed them out like where the buses don't run, like they were not around any of their students. And I was like, I don't know if I'm prepared for that. Like my first time subbing, can I do that? And luckily I did, and I went, and it just completely changed my life after that first day. It was in Nokomis. But still, I got a job doing home mortgages at Wells Fargo, and a couple years later, I was looking out the window. I was like, I don't think I'm meant to be in a cubicle. And that's when I decided to go back to school to become a special education teacher at Edwardsville, and that's where I'm currently at, getting a master's. And I think I'm just going to go to school forever.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So to answer your question, what was growing up like? I think I've brought us up to speed.
You're still growing up, just like me.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Why do you have to really stop? Well, you're not ever done. It doesn't matter where you're at in your life. You want to do something different, just do it.
Exactly.
I do that all the time.
Exactly.
That's why I do this.
Yeah. I'm never just going to go through the motions and be like, okay, it's Thursday, time for bingo. Okay, it's time for this. No, keep changing. Absolutely. So
that's the story of Zach Wygal and how you got from little Zach to current Zach.
I think so. I might have left out a few things.
Current Zach is involved in a lot of things. Current Zach I've known you for probably the last 3 or 4 years with the work you've done with Stamp Out Cancer. That's a topic we could go on forever. I mean, briefly tell us what Stamp Out Cancer is all about, why you started that.
Stamp Out Cancer, was started in honor of my father, who was a postal carrier, who died of a brain tumor, and it would be 11 years this year. And it was one of those things I just wanted to raise a bunch of money. It was kind of like I just wanted to use my notoriety for good. Because at that time I was starting to get more involved with the community, and I was bartending, and I just said, hey, let's see if we can raise a bunch of money doing celebrity bartending, and it took off from there. 7 years later, and almost $350,000 for the Montgomery County Cancer Association.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it is the biggest event, really, that I know of in Montgomery County, is it not?
I hear it's a fun time.
And you hear it.
One of these times I'll attend. But it's because normally when I'm there, it's just a blur. Sure. It really is.
The thing about it is it's not the event itself. Stamp Out Cancer is a season.
It is. Yeah, we actually have to tell our participants, hey, it starts like when tickets go on sale and it ends in, because we don't want to saturate the market too much to where people get sick of it, where it's like an all year thing. I mean, we most certainly could. No, we've just kind of put it in that we have a season. Yeah.
And it's always fun. I've never personally gotten to go because your tickets sell out in like 12 seconds.
I might know a guy that knows a guy. So just let me know sometime because I would love to have you in attendance, because I think you'd have an absolute blast with it. So really, we'll talk.
We'll talk.
Yes.
All right. So you're involved in Stamp Out Cancer. You've raised over $350,000. You've taken some of that chutzpah, so to speak, that ability to promote, and you've started something else in Hillsborough.
Yeah, we're talking Imagine Hillsborough here, but how it got started was we went to a meeting in Hillsborough where it was called Mapping Your Future, and it was put on by Western Illinois University. This lady named Giselle came down, just kind of gave a brief overview. Hey, this is what we do: is we help communities band together and figure out where you guys would like to be and try to make your town better. So from there, that night, we decided to form what they call a steering committee. And it was like myself and about 7 others. Leslie Pollard was on there as well, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. But from there, we had like the next 6 months to work on who we want to be in this focus group. We were going to have a focus group where it's like 4 or 5 3-hour sessions. And we're writing down the positives and negatives about our town on all that. So anyway, we get together and we figure out, okay, we're going to start sending out invites to people, prominent people in the community. But we wanted everybody from all walks of life, not just what they call the STP, the same 10 people.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm very familiar with that that group. I didn't. Yes, I wasn't familiar with the acronym, but I know exactly what you're talking about. But it's true
because we would find ourselves, a lot of us that were on the steering committee, were the ones that would show up to a lot of things in the community, or normally volunteering. A lot of our time. We're like. And it gets kind of old. We're like, how can we get more people involved? So that's when we started sending out all these, letters in the mail and things like that. And like, okay, will you show up to this focus group? And it's led by this Mapping Your Future and from Western Illinois. And so the very first session, and it was what they call the Cloud Room at Hillsborough Hospital, we had about 60 or 70 people show up. I mean, it was a good packed house. And that's when we had these really big Post-it type notes on the wall, and they brought down their own people, and people just started shouting out things. Hey, this is what our assets are in town, and this is what we'd like to have in town. And then from there, we're like, okay, so we had to come up with a name, and the name we came up with beforehand, it was just honestly sitting around a table, and it just kind of got thrown out there just because we're thinking of positivity type things, and then the Beatles song kind of came in, and
there you go.
We got Imagine Hillsborough out of it. Yeah, we had what they call a town hall meeting to introduce ourselves to the public. We had 100 plus people, probably about 150 people show up to the Moose. And that was 2 years ago. Honestly, Imagine Hillsborough was one of the coolest things. I mean, starting Stamp Out was fun. And I mean, I love it. And to this day, it's my baby. But Imagine Hillsborough, the reason I wanted to really be a part of this was to give other people in the town that same feeling that I have with Stamp Out Cancer. Like once I get done with an event, I mean, it's you're on a whole new cloud.
Sure.
After you just like, oh my God, I just put on another awesome, successful event.
And it raised this much money.
Yeah.
And you can't believe it actually happened.
Yeah. And you feel so wonderful. Yeah. So I was like, what if we can give people an opportunity to have that same feeling? Because it's contagious. Then you want to keep doing that. And that was how I looked at Imagine Hillsborough. I'm like, if I can help start this, then maybe I can step away from it. and just let everybody else run. And I've been trying to. I am on the board of directors. I'm just now got selected for my second term as vice president. But I mean, really, what it is, in order to be on the board, you then have to be one of the nominees from your goal group, and the one I represent is our Parks and Recreation. Okay. Which our Parks and Recreation is what is now putting on our summer concert series.
What are some of the things Imagine's accomplished so far, and maybe give me a couple of things you're working on going forward?
Our festivals committee is our probably our most prominent group, and I remember I was barely a part of that to begin with. I just kind of gave them a couple pointers, and that was it. I'm like, because I mean, I put on events enough. The Christmas celebration.
Oh, yeah.
When we did...
That's huge over there.
Yes. I mean, that was something that Leslie and I used to be a part of years ago when we had a group called 2000 and Beyond. And that's how I basically got started and everything, was hopping on. There was this 2000 and Beyond, because they put on the summer concerts, but also Christmas thing. But we would maybe get lucky to get 100 people downtown. But we had a real small budget and blah, blah. So we let the festivals take this over and take it to a whole new level.
Right. It's huge.
Like not last year, before we turned downtown into Whoville.
Right.
We had over 3,000 people. I mean, the hotels were sold out in Litchfield. I was running into couples. I talked to this couple from Cleveland, Ohio.
No kidding.
And I go, I was like, hey, so what brought you here? They go, we saw it on Facebook and it looked interesting.
Wow.
Because they were doing a really good job of using the Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And next thing we know, there was people coming from 8, 10, 12 hours away, just because they thought, wow, how cool of a little small town to turn themselves into Whoville.
That's awesome.
And they had another successful one this year. Not as many people, but that's, I think, a good thing, because we did have some people that left being like, well, it's not like what we expected. I'm like, well, we are a small town, though, still, too. But they also put on the Harvest Market, which is another huge one. Our housing group is very secretive. Which is good, because that's kind of like a competition almost there with other towns, because you're trying to get people to move to your town. Education's working on good things of getting more notoriety of people, like students' recognition in the paper, and also just facilitating between teachers, maybe different things that might work in the classroom. I mean, I have to give props, of course, to our Parks and Recreation. Like, we just built our first trail. It's out by our sports complex. We had, I mean, people asked, they're like, hey, when we drop our kids off to go to soccer practice, we'd like to have a trail to walk on out there.
Right. Yeah.
So we made one, and that's first of many trails that we'd like to have around. We have a grand plan. If all goes well and a little money trickles our way, we could have, to me, in my mind, the best walking trail system in not just central Illinois, but I think people would be coming from all around.
That's awesome
for this, because
there's good topography there. There's a lot of good, there's woodlands, there's lakes, there's lots of stuff to really mix in.
There is, but we have an area that we're talking, our Central Park, where that's at.
Yeah.
And where our lake's at.
Right.
Connecting those. And no, one walking, it goes, I mean, there's no road straight from there to the lake, because what used to be in between there, that used to be a road called Taylorville Road. And so it's already laid there. There's already a road that goes from there to there, but they just shut it down. I don't know how many years ago.
Really? So the base is there.
The base is there. We're just waiting on some people to let us use a part of their land.
Gotcha.
To go through there. But no, from there to there, that goes by some artesian wells. And I mean, there's just some cool things out there. I mean, even along that road, there used to be a brewery.
Now you're talking my language.
Right? And actually, there's a cool story behind this. Jim May in Hillsborough does an awesome job about Hillsborough's history. And he was talking about how there was a brewery there, and how the rumor is, and we could actually have little posts along the way, saying things, is that it got shut down because a worker there got disgruntled and got unhappy with what was happening there, or maybe got fired, I'm not for sure, and decided to put soap in all of their barrels of beer.
No.
Like a little bit. And so he ruined their entire batch, because they didn't catch it, I guess, till later. And they used to keep their barrels in a cave around there. And the rumor is that they just dynamited the whole thing, and it's still buried in there somewhere. It's like a brewery where they kept all these barrels of beer, because they said, well, screw it, we're done.
Mysteries of Hillsborough.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's a whole nother podcast topic right there.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, that's along there. So yeah, there's just, what we're mainly trying to accomplish is just to show people that cool things can happen in a small town. I mean, yes, I still go to St. Louis for fun things, but there's a lot of good things happening there too, and we can do it ourselves. Yeah, and I mean that's why when you look at smaller towns, we can't just sit back and whine anymore and just say, oh, everything's leaving us. Okay, well, let's do something about it. And we have to be the ones that do it. No one's just going to throw money our way. We have to, suck it up and just go out there and make things happen.
Exactly. And I think you're doing a phenomenal job of that. You guys over there, I will say this, are the envy of towns around you. You might not know it, but you truly are. I mean, everybody I know that lives in a town in that 15, 20-mile radius around Hillsborough points and goes, those guys are doing it right.
And you know what? And I've heard that.
It really is a town that's got its quote-unquote stuff together.
Oh, our movie theaters.
Your movie theater's amazing.
Phenomenal.
Give those guys a shout.
Oh, absolutely. The Orpheum Theater in Hillsborough. No, I mean, there's people, most of their business is not from Hillsborough. It's people from out of town. There's people that come from St. Louis, and especially their movie premieres. I remember when we were at our Imagine meeting and we're trying to figure out what do we want our town to be. One of my ideas was I go, well, we could be the movie premiere capital of the world. Like we could, coin our, revolve our entire town. Our niche could be that theater, and we could have, we could talk maybe certain theaters to be or certain movies. Hey, why don't you try doing this in a small town? Put on a premiere here, and people would come all around, every couple weeks just to see what type of production is going to happen outside that theater. Have little shops selling little trinkets, with movie memorabilia, and I don't know, just
name drop the owners.
The Eisentrauts. Yeah. I mean, really, and we had actually Carrie is one of our participants on Stamp Out Cancer one year. Yeah. Just a really good family.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, the things they're wanting to do, how they give back to our town is wonderful too.
So you got an in with them. You can get those folks on my podcast.
I could. I think I could. I think I can get them on. And yeah, absolutely. Hey, just let me know.
Yeah, we'll make sure we make that because they're on my list too.
Good.
Because that is such a neat thing that they've got going on over there. Yeah. The Star Wars premiere they had where they had the X-wing and the TIE Fighter. That was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It really was.
Did you see when they did Batman a couple years ago?
No.
Okay. So the final Batman with Bane.
Yeah.
They had the street blocked off. And they brought in, they set the whole entire place up as an asylum inside.
Really?
And that's why you still see, it looks like a town inside there because they made it up as like Gotham. But inside there was an asylum. And they were bringing in characters one by one, Joker. And one of the people driving the truck of the asylum was Matt Hughes. Was actually acting like he was one of the guards. And so they brought them all in one by one, and then finally when they got them in there and everyone's still standing outside, something went crazy in there, and they're like, oh, everyone's on the loose, blah, blah, blah. And then they shoot across the street up on top of a building, the bat signal, and there's actually someone dressed up as Batman standing up on the roof across the street. I mean, it was beyond awesome.
That's awesome.
Beyond awesome. I mean,
Zach, tell us about what you've got coming up. You've got a great event you've been putting on for a number of years called the Hillsborough Summer Concert Series.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to say, first off, all credit right now in my mind goes to Leslie Pollard, just because she helps me not only with Stamp Out Cancer. I mean, she's right there with me since day one. But this as well. She's a really good promoter and has a really good eye for talent. How this started was 2000 Beyond used to put on a second Sunday concert series up on the square in Hillsborough. And they finally just kind of wanted to pass it on to someone else to put it on. And so they're like, hey, why don't you guys take this over? So that first year, we were just reaching out to anyone that we could get to play for the cheapest amount, because I think we had a $300 budget for an entire summer.
$300.
I think it was around
for
three or $500. I mean, we got a few sponsors and things like that. So we had a few $100s. We did a good job. We got some sponsors. So then the next year, okay, we figured our bread and butter was we have to get more sponsors, and then we can beef up, who we bring in. And the turning point was for us actually that next year is we brought in, they're called the Ramblin' Blues Band. They played the first ever Stamp Out Cancer, but it's a girl from Hillsborough named Keely Zaruzin is in that band, and everybody wanted to see her. So once we realized how big this show was going to be, we coincided it with the car show that takes place there, because we had to close down Main Street on how many people we expected to be there. And it was that way. I mean, there was people everywhere. I ran into BJ Penn there. The MMA fighter. He was there with me. Him and Jeremy Horn were there with Matt Hughes. So that was, it was a great, awesome event. And it was after that year, we're like, how can we get more people to our event? And one, we realized we probably can't keep it downtown because when we were putting on those concerts, cars were driving by. I mean, except for that one. And that was dangerous.
The square was open.
The square was open. I mean, like, okay, we keep it there, but we're like, how else can we bring people here? And we realized, what if they could bring their own beverages? And I mean, honestly, we looked at, we found out that there was a bluegrass stage out at our campground. I had no clue it was there. I mean, I'd lived in Hillsborough, you know, pretty much my whole life. And I just never really noticed it.
At Sherwood Forest.
And we went out there, and it's the most beautiful, awesome bluegrass stage. I mean, what it was, because we used to have a bluegrass festival back in the day there. We'd bring thousands of people out there. They stopped doing those, but it's still, the stage was still there. And it's got a backstage area, huge stage. I mean, good lighting, all that. And it's like in an amphitheater type setting.
Yes.
And so we decided next year to move it out there and ramped up our sponsors. And every year, it's taken off since we moved it out to that venue.
How long's it been going?
I think Leslie said, I think our 8th year. I think it's our 7th or 8th. Might be our 8th. Wait, we just did our 7th Stamp Out Cancer. And if we started a year before that, it might be our 8th. Yeah, I think it could be.
So you're in your 8th year of the summer concert series. What's the lineup you've got this year? Tell me about the lineup.
So I'm going to get really super excited when I talk about some of these.
That's what we want.
I'll go in like reverse order because I'm going to end with the one I'm most excited about. So to end the year, September 2nd, is a band called Oak, Steel, and Lightning.
Oak, Steel, and Lightning. Great name.
Yeah. So Leslie, she's the biggest bluegrass fan out there, and she's always seeing bands around that nature around St. Louis, and we kind of want to stick with that theme every year as an homage to where
the festival started.
Yeah, and so we always try to get some type of more string influenced band, and this one is, look them up. They're almost like a hillbilly country kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, Oak, Steel, and Lightning is, I mean, this is my first time ever hearing them because we've had other bands that we'd go and almost scout, like Old Salt Union. When we had them 3 or 4 years ago, we kept telling people, like, listen, these guys are legit. They're going to be big. And even before they got to us, they were on, they got selected for something out in Los Angeles. They had to fly out there. And then also they got selected to play at a Lou Fest. No, they are beyond. But I'm saying with Old Salt Union, they just got their first record contract.
Great.
August 5th is the Young Eyes. And they're from Hillsborough, actually. We stumbled across them. They've been playing St. Louis and stuff for a while. They actually just came out with their first album yesterday. They played a show uptown and dropped their first 9-song EP. And we saw their music video that they put on YouTube, and it blew us away. It's Brian Lee. He's like the lone wolf, I think, from Hillsborough, and the rest is like Greenville and stuff like that. But no, we're pretty stoked because we get questions.
And what kind of music?
It's like alternative rock.
Okay.
Because we get questions a lot, like, hey, you know what? I'm friends, with a lot of bands around here. Like, well, why aren't we playing? And I go, well, we try to focus on original music. So anyway, July 4th. So what happened with July 4th is we used to never put on really a show there because Hillsborough did their own thing, and that the July 4th committee disbanded, and the mayor kind of turned to us and said, how can you save this? And so the first time we took it over, all of July 4th, we had the cardboard boat regatta during the day, which we're going to have that again this year. It's beyond too much fun. And then we had a concert. We had actually, was it Old Salt Union? Yeah. We brought them back, and they played out there, and it was. And I remember even the mayor, Brian Sullivan, coming up. He goes thanking Leslie and I. He goes, "You guys saved the 4th of July," and it felt really good. But I mean, it's a long day for us because we're there all morning. I get to go home and shower, and then I come back and to meet the band out there and get them going. But this July 4th, we have the Voodoo Players, and they do different bands. And so like, it's Sean Cannon. He actually is a house band on this music show that's on TV around St. Louis too. But they did. I remember seeing they did Voodoo Talking Heads. Voodoo Prince. When they did Voodoo Prince for his tribute, Funky Butt Brass Band jumped in, and Steve Ewing from The Urge jumped in. Like, all it is just random musicians around St. Louis that he gets together to pay tribute to different bands. And so when Leslie was talking to Sean about this, on who he could get for the July 4th, because he was available, and it was down to 2, and we settled on Voodoo Eagles.
Voodoo Eagles.
That's
gonna be awesome.
We're bringing the Eagles. I mean, really, July 4th, Eagles. I mean, that's
doesn't get any better.
That's
than
some
that.
America.
Rest
right
in
there.
peace, Glenn Fry. I love me some Eagles.
He's got some strugglers blues there.
Yeah. Nice throwdown here, Zach.
Yes. And so, but then our first one, June 3rd, is I can't even. I'm like a kid in a candy store right now talking about this. We're bringing back Clockwork, which they have now changed their name to Hounds. And how I found out about Clockwork years ago was about 3-4 years ago. Was they were opening for the Urge at the pageant, and I'm one of the biggest Urge fans out there, hands down. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen them and luckily met them, many times too. And I saw these kids up on stage, and they were kids. I don't think any of them were 21 at the time. Just completely tear up the pageant. I mean, everyone was just going nuts. Like, these kids are amazing. So, and I happened to run into them right outside the pageant when we were leaving, and they're handing out flyers for a show they were playing at Blueberry Hill. And I remember going up to them, probably very right of mind. And I just remember putting my arm around them and I go, I'm going to bring you guys to Hillsboro. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll play wherever. I go, no, really. Remember this. I'm going to bring you to Hillsboro. And sure enough, the next year, yes, talking to their manager, and I was like excited. I got to bring Clockwork here. Then last year, we had Steve Ewing of The Urge, the lead singer of The Urge. I mean, super famous around St. Louis. Yeah. Owner of Steve's Hot Dogs on the Hill. There actually is a push to get The Urge on the Walk of Fame in St. Louis right now. Mm-hmm. And so, but when Steve came, he brought it was just Steve Ewing, and it's called the Steve Ewing Band. I'm sorry, we couldn't afford The Urge. And what it was, and when I was talking to his backup band, they'd never even played with him before. He just put a feeler out there. Hey, who can come to Hillsboro, this day to play? And they just kind of followed his cue, just kind of played along. They knew some Urge songs, I guess in their head. And so, and then he threw some money their way, saying, hey, thanks for being, my backup band. And so I was sitting there thinking, okay, if it's that simple, what if I fuse two bands together? So I started talking to Jordan Sloan, the guitarist and lead singer of Clockwork, which is now called Hounds. Mm-hmm. And I said, so how would you guys like to, come back and play? And of course, they loved playing there in Hillsboro. And I go, but what if you were also the backup band for Steve Ewing? And he's like, we would be honored. He's like, but would Steve want to do it? I go, well, okay, if you're in, now I'll talk to Steve. Yeah. And I put the feeler out to Steve. He goes, dude, that's a really good idea. He's like, make it work. I'm in. And so going back and forth, and the thing is, they didn't want to just like that day to show up. No, I've already sent them the song list and they're practicing it. Really? Yeah. Oh yeah. They're practicing Urge songs right now. And I mean, I'm not going to say too much, but they're wanting to bring some special guests. They're asking like, hey, can we bring this so-and-so? We think it'll add to this Urge song. Bring whoever you want. Because I mean, the last time they came, they brought Matt Wynn with them to like, hey, can we bring Matt Wynn to open? Or, you don't have to pay him anything. He was an American Idol contestant. Matt Wynn was super cool dude. So they brought him along. So I'm like, you guys can bring whoever you want. Yeah. I mean, I go. This is what is so much fun about these concerts is we normally become friends with the bands, and we're known as a really good, like, positive place for them to play because we're fanboys is what we are.
Yes, you are. I noticed that on Facebook. Every time you're down at the pageant, you're down at the Blueberry Hills. I see that a lot. And there's Zach again, maybe your brother, whoever else with you, and you got your arms around Steve Ewing and the guys from the Urge and Jerry and everyone.
Yeah, so we're super pumped when we had them. So we treat them like royalty when they show up. We don't look at it as, oh, you're here to like play good for us, you're a lot of money riding on this. No, have fun. And that's what I'm telling him. I go, he's like, well, what's the order? How should we do this? You want us to open? You want Steve to open? I go, I don't really, whatever you think's best. Yeah. I go, have fun with this. You're going to have fun because you're going to say, you get to be, play for Steve Ewing, and Steve's going to have fun because he thinks you guys are great already. And I'm like, all of this is going to be, let's just look at it as just musicians jamming out on the stage. So 4 action-packed shows this summer. Yes. How much does it cost the concert goer? Oh, man. So you better bring your wallet because it costs nothing. Nothing. But we do sell food. and honestly, we do pass around a donation bucket. Yeah. Like if you like what we hear, we say just throw a few bucks in there because I mean we got to pay these bands, not me personally. So that was the question I was leading to. We get sponsors. You do this for free. I do. Yes. Well, you do. I mean, but the concert series is absolutely free to show up. Mm-hmm. You get there to the Sherwood Forest Campground. You're going to see the chance to see 4 killer shows this summer, and it's going to cost you nothing. Yes. You take donations. Yeah. You do the other things. You do get sponsors for this. Uh-huh. I think it's a good time you give those folks a shot. Absolutely, because a lot of these we've had for many of years. So I'm just going to kind of go through this. So we have Hearst and Roche, CNB Bank and Trust, TCCU, Springfield Clinic of Hillsborough, Hayes Abrasives, Roger Jennings, and they've been with us since day one. Roger Jennings has Pepsi Refreshment Services, and we throw them on there because all of our soda we get for free from Pepsi, and they make all of our banners. They've been a great partner with us. So we have Griffin, Winning, Cohen & Bodavis, which is a law firm that's one of the places in Hillsborough. Consolidated Communications has actually been with us, I think, since day one. Our friends at Care Outer, they were a huge sponsor last year. So, yeah, no, we can't do it without them.
What else are you doing to raise a little money for this series?
Well, I hear, a little birdie told me, May 12th, we're going to have a music trivia.
Awesome.
Showing up at the Moose Lodge in Hillsborough. It's hosted by TKO Trivia. It's a guy named Jim Toko, and he's the voice of the Hilltoppers as well. And we had him do a pop culture trivia for us back in December, the day tickets went on sale for Stamp Out, and that sold out, and everyone had a blast. So yeah, we're doing that almost as to kind of kick off the concert series too, because we'll try to have some of the music of the bands we're having littered throughout it, which a lot of the bands we've had you can find on Spotify. So just throwing that out there too. So it's at the Hillsborough Moose. Doors open at 6. Trivia starts at 7. And you can have up to 10 people at your table. Tables are $100. So if you get 10 people, it's just $10 a person for a pretty fun time. You can register online. You can probably just search it, but it's called musicbuffsunite.eventbrite.com. So if you just search for it on Eventbrite and just look for Music Buffs Unite, or even probably just imagine Hillsborough's summer concert, trivia.
So the name of the trivia night is Music Buffs Unite.
Music Buffs Unite.
And it's all going to be music related.
All music related. There's not going to be anything about art unless it's album covers. So
no, name the 12th president and who's on Mount Rushmore and name state capitals.
If it's in a song. If it's in a song, then
it's fair game.
Absolutely fair game.
All right. I mean, I sit here and I talk to you and I go, I don't know how you even have time to sleep. You've got so many things going on. Your calendar over in Hillsborough just must be one event after the next to the next to the next. You're living life, man. You really are.
It's not, well, I mean, I am, but I'm not. I mean, to me, like these things are things that I should be doing, because I'm capable and I'm able to do it and I have the will to do it. If you're not trying to make a difference in the world, then what are you doing? So why not do it? If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And knowing everyone that I know that knows you, and I'll embarrass you a little bit, you're like a god to them over there. You really are. It's everyone. You're like the mayor of Montgomery County. The honorary person. You've got your hands in so many things. Everything you touch is quality through and throughout, and you're giving it all back to the community. And I think that makes you such a special person, Zach. I mean, you're a special guy. You really are.
I am the worst at like taking compliments.
I know you're like turning your head. You're not looking at me when I say that, but it's all absolutely true.
Because I mean, not to sound like trying to think of the word, like unappreciative of any of those things, but I look at it and I say there's more I could be doing, because there is more. I actually have like more ideas of things that I'd like to accomplish, and Leslie's normally Leslie Pollard. I was going to go real quickly on Leslie Pollard. I met her in college back in Carbondale, and we were friends. We hung around like the same people, and she ended up marrying Jared Pollard from Hillsborough. And so when she moved back here, it was like having like your college buddy move back to town, And so anytime I have these wild hairs, Leslie jumps on board. If she has one, I jump on board. So they're like, well, yeah, we think, people might like this,
Tell me about the float you had last year in the Old Settlers Parade.
So yeah, we had this little known band called Retro Rocket.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, play live on a float, and it was. Once again, thank you guys so much for agreeing to do that.
It was awesome.
It was one of those wild hairs that I had, and I worked with Tony Marcolini on this from Marcolini Construction. He got the trailer for us and helped build, that stage, and we're going to hopefully build onto that this year as well too. Another looking for bands, and we're hoping to make it even, sturdier, bigger, and better, and all that. But yeah, we had Retro Rocket play live going down the street, and where I'm peeved about though is that, you guys were featured front page of the newspaper.
It was awesome. It's hanging right there on the wall.
Yes,
right over there.
Yeah, and everyone was talking about that, and we placed fourth place in just our division. And so that same day, Imagine Hillsborough had a float, and we threw it together that day, that float. And we said, hey, we just throw a bunch of cardboard boats on a trailer. Kevin Wrench let us borrow a trailer and throw a couple poster boards on there and call it a day. And it'll promote the cardboard boat regatta. That placed third. That placed above a rolling concert coming down the road that just grabbed everyone's attention. I mean, all we saw was people with their cell phones out.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, it was rock star central. People were just walking around. I mean, they were jumping in front of them. We were having to like stop because people were jumping in front trying to take video.
Yeah, you were walking. You were handing out things. You know, we're on the float. And literally, I never had that much fun in that quick a time. Saw so many faces. I mean, people could hear us coming from a quarter mile away.
Yes.
We were louder than anything marching band, I think. And we weren't really that loud. We just had a small PA on it. But yeah, you'd look out there and old, young, male, female, whatever demographic, they were all dancing and enjoying it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm like, so I remember when I was talking with, because me and Tony were joking the whole time. I go, we're not going to win anything. Like, this float's not going to win. I go, I'm going to tell you right now. And he even tell you, I called that. So he's like, what are we going to do next year? I go, we're going to bust our butts. And I go, and we are going to get third. we are going to work our way up to third place, whether they like it or not. I couldn't stop smiling. I mean, the whole entire time, like, this is so cool.
It was awesome.
So cool.
You lit that. That was awesome. See, this is again the magic of Zach. It's you took this harebrained idea and turned it into something that, if you asked anyone about that parade last year, name one thing you remembered. That would have to be at the top of the list.
Tootsie Rolls. Perhaps just Tootsie Rolls, maybe.
Maybe.
And Retro Rocket jamming out, going down the road for the whole town to see.
It was awesome.
A floating concert.
It was awesome. One of the things I like to do on the podcast is we talked about the topics you wanted to talk about, or that I wanted you to talk about. Let's be clear. I asked you to come over here. One of the things I like to do is just take it a little bit of a different direction. And I've got these standard 5 questions now I ask of every guest. So, Zach, what was your first job?
Hillsborough Dairy Queen.
Yeah?
Yes. I worked there from like my sophomore to senior year, and still to this day, I can make a curly Q. They make you practice that. They put a bucket below you.
Yeah.
And because you have to get the weights right on the cones. And so you're just trying to make like a 3 ounce, a 5 ounce, like 7 ounce, and you put it on the thing, and if it wasn't right, and you dump it in the bucket. I mean, I filled up that thing, and it was also practicing the curly Q. Yeah.
What CD do you have in your car right now?
I don't think I have I have a lot of CDs there, but I listen to Spotify.
Spotify?
I mean, I'm a huge proponent, and I'm actually digging more and more into it, just making the playlists and things like that. But like the most previous, actually, I share some of these playlists. Like the last one I made was all bands that we've had for a summer concert series.
Oh, that's cool.
I took a couple tracks from each band, and I ended up getting there's like 70 songs on there. And I'm like, this is something I can just keep adding to.
And that's something you can share?
Yeah, I can share it with you.
I tell you what, that's something I want the link, and we'll put it out for the pod.
Perfect.
When we got the links, and everybody get a taste of what it's really all about.
Exactly, yeah.
What's the most embarrassing app you have on your cell phone?
And I knew this one I knew was coming, and it's funny because the girl you had, Emily, talked about word cookies.
Right.
And oh my God, that game is so addicting.
Did you have it before that?
I did, but what happened was I dropped my phone and broke it the other day. So I almost had the game beat. And now I can't get if I have to start back over, and I don't want to. So embarrassing. I got it. Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go.
Did you play that a lot? That seemed like it dropped like a nuclear bomb last summer.
It did.
And then went away that fast.
It did. And I played it. It's not really playing it because I like to go on walks around town and out and everywhere during the summer. And it just added to it, honestly, because, I wouldn't have it. You would watch me walking around like zombies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It was fun just to people watch because they were everywhere. People, they came out from under rocks to walk around, to hunting these things. And me, though, I had these Bluetooth headphones, and it would just make a noise whenever one would pop up. So I'd just be walking, listening to music, and I'll pull my phone out and I'll get this one. And it just added to the day.
But you're right about the people walking around. I live, well, when you turn out of the compound here, the John Knowles compound, you'll see the cemetery of Mount Olive is right over here. And there were 5 or 6 of the, what do they call them? The hot spots or whatever they
gyms.
The gyms.
Yeah.
And so the entire town, all last July, I think it was, you'd see people walking over there, walking around the cemetery. They'd be hanging out. It was crazy. There's literally one maybe 100 feet from my living room. And you could, and every now and then the GPS would drift enough you'd catch it.
I'm going to check it out right now just to see. I haven't actually logged in forever. That's a whole different screen. But yeah, and what the worst though, honestly, was watching people about get clipped by cars.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they just were oblivious. Just walking. Oh, it's time to cut this way. I'm just going to keep looking at my phone and keep walking. Doesn't matter if there's
I'll even go you one better. I missed the safety of people texting and driving.
Right.
Instead of playing Pokemon Go and driving, which happens a lot.
Yeah, it
really did.
You do have some spots around here.
I wasn't lying. I
know
about Pokemon.
There's just one right down the street.
That's right. Maybe you and I can go visit it later. When you were growing up, what was the favorite Christmas gift you ever got?
Oh, hands down, the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier.
Okay, tell me about this.
You never heard of this?
Let's assume I haven't.
Okay. The G.I. Joe aircraft carrier was like I think it was 6 foot long aircraft carrier. That's all it was. You could fit all of your vehicles on there or inside underneath it. And it had all of your guys, and it just took up an entire room. And so I remember seeing commercials for it, and these commercials made it seem like, this thing could go out and sail the 7 seas if it needed to. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I remember as soon as the first commercial I ever saw, I was like, I want, this is on my Christmas wish list. And I'd, bug my parents, and they're like, you're not, no, this thing is huge and costs a lot and blah, blah. I'm like, and so I remember I think I was 8 or 9 years old, 8 maybe. I remember I turned to anytime I was near a wishing well. They used to have one I think at White Oak Mall. Yeah. And every time I got to throw some pennies in here because I got to get this, aircraft carrier. And so this was around the time I remember when my parents got divorced. And so my dad had already moved out, and we were in our house, and that was not much after that. We moved to Nokomis, but so I knew that it wasn't going to be that big of a Christmas. Family split up, and I'm not expecting the aircraft carrier. And we had, I had a couple gifts, and I was like, okay, thank you, this is great. And then they said, hey, there's one more, behind the couch. And then as soon as that box got rolled out, I lost it. I flipped because it was wrapped, but I knew, there's only one thing this size that could be in there. And I remember unwrapping it, and I just, wow. And and I remember my brother just helped me to set it up in the basement. And it came with a booklet. It was the size of a notebook, just of stickers. Yeah. It had so many stickers just to put, and that was their favorite part, was it was almost like putting together Legos. This thing was so huge. That's awesome. And what I wish though is that I held on to it, because if you actually have a fully completed aircraft carrier, it goes for tens of thousands of dollars. No kidding. On eBay right now. Oh, it's one of the most sought after things, because I lost pieces to it left and right. As going through moving to different places. This thing was I'm serious. This box would take up half that wall there. It was huge. Anyone listening, if you've got a G.I. Joe aircraft carrier or pieces of such, contact us here at the What's That Like podcast, and we'll hook you up with Zach. He needs this stuff to complete his childhood. I know. The thing is, we actually, I got rid of part of ours the other day. It was in my mom's basement, and all that was left was just fragments of it, and I just pitched it all. I'm like, I'm not going to try to salvage it for pieces on, hawking them on eBay just to see who needs a cannon, from the left pod of this. No. You talk about that box coming out from behind the couch. It reminds me of when I was a kid. I don't remember what Christmas it was, but I was probably, I want to say 9 or 10, somewhere in there. And all I wanted was one of those Tyco electric race car tracks, slot car tracks. Yeah. And I asked, and I went to Santa, and I wanted one of those so bad. And then on Christmas Eve, this box shows up under the tree, and it's proportionally sized to what I wanted. And Christmas morning comes around, and I rip that sucker open, and it was a frickin' toss across with the bean bags where you'd play tic-tac-toe. I hated that damn thing.
I hated it. That's the worst Christmas gift ever. Thanks, Mom.
Or are we talking like with the triggers and everything?
No,
the triggers for the race car.
Yeah.
Okay,
Slot car stuff. And so I remember telling that story to my wife. It's got to be a decade ago. And then one Christmas, it showed up here. I was probably 35, but
do you still have it?
Yeah, it's up.
Do you still play with it?
Yeah, my son and I got it out every now and then.
Does it have like loops and everything on this one?
This one has no loops. This one was pretty simple.
Okay,
but yeah.
See, I could picture you being like a. I wonder if you can do this with slot cars. Remember, like when people would turn their entire area into a big train thing,
train set,
train set. Can you do this with slot cars?
Absolutely.
Keep adding on tracks and more tracks.
That was the thing when I was a kid. You'd get the Tyco set. I eventually did get one when I was a kid. But with it, you'd get the little brochure of all the other attachments that you could get, and you'd flip it open. And one of the ones I wanted more than anything was the crossing.
Oh yeah,
where you could take the Tyco train, and it had a crossing built into it for the slot cars. Oh, wow. So you could have both of them hooked together. Oh my God, the accidents you could have created and recreated there. That would have been awesome.
So hey, you only live once. Tell me that you're thinking about.
I haven't thought about it, but now I am.
I mean, you got to set this up.
Will you join me on this journey?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would follow you to the depths of the bottom of Mount Olive to make this dream of yours happen. And it's not, well, okay, it's more for selfish reasons. It's not to see your enjoyment come out of it. I just want to see those wreck.
Yeah.
Mainly, I just want to see the train and the slot meet each other. I mean, I'm sure I could watch a YouTube video, but being in person, yeah.
It would have been awesome.
And your whole childhood being coming, that's great too. Yeah.
Last question for you. What TV show would Zach Weichel be a character on?
Oh, yeah. So this here's another hour. So I can't. So my correlation, how I correlate with Ted Mosby on How I Met Your Mother, no, because that would just be replacing his character.
Yes.
Okay. So if I was to be on one, I would honestly, I could see Cheers.
See, that would be my answer.
Yeah, Cheers. Just because, not only because I was a bartender at one time, but just the whole talking with people in town and get them, because in my mind, and that's where I think some even politicians fall short, is you really get the feel for a town when you're up at the corner bar sometimes, just talking with some of the locals there and them just getting the weight of the world off their chest or some of the problems they're having in a town. You find out there. I mean, you really do. You can get the pulse, I think, of your town. And I was fortunate enough to work at 2 different places in town that was frequented by all ranges of people. And that's, I mean, I felt like I really got to know what my town was about by doing that. And that's Cheers. I mean, you can just learn all about Boston.
I love Cheers. I've always said that's mine. Yeah. I'd love to just sit there. I'd probably be the Cliff Clavin type, because I know a little bit about everything, but nothing at the same time.
Yeah. I don't know which character. I can't be Norm.
That's
I can't
the
be
thing.
Norm.
No, you're not. That's the point. You wanted to sit there. You'd be like Paul. Yeah, just the guy that they bring into the adventure every now and then.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like now. I mean, I just like sitting around with my friends, with a cold one and just talking about life, and that's what they did there.
Yeah,
and
it's one of the greatest shows ever,
hands down.
I find myself watching that now, and just the little one-liners that pop up are just part of my everyday lexicon. That doesn't make sense to anyone that's not a Cheers fan. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but it's things like the Norm stuff. He was just great. He'd be like, women, can't live with them. Pass the beer nuts. Yeah. Did you have fun?
Absolutely. No, it's like first time doing a podcast. I am looking forward. This is great. Honestly, it's great because you got a really good knack for it. And I like that 5 questions thing. And I like, this is what I'm finding fascinating about this the most right now is that I've talked to you before, but I've never probably sat back and talked to you for 10 minutes straight.
No.
And we don't know each other that well.
No.
But we just sat here and just talked.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's because when you put headphones on and a microphone in front of you, there's just something about it to where you can really just start opening up and just start talking to people. And maybe that's what's fascinating to me about doing a podcast is that you can just sit back and have a conversation. I can't even with my best friends. I don't think I could have sat back without a microphone and just sit there and just talk for an hour, something straight. I'm digging all of this. Already, I'm like, when's Stamp Out going to be here? I'll gladly come back and do this again.
Well, we don't have to wait till Stamp Out Cancer. Consider it an open invitation to come by anytime. Thanks a lot for coming, man. Really appreciate it. Well, there you have it. Weigal was awesome. Like he said, he and I have known each other for a while, but never really had an in-depth conversation. I started this podcast. He was one of the names I had at the top of the list that said he would be good to come on and talk about those things that I said I would do, which is talk about not only the interesting people, but some of the interesting events that are going on and the interesting things. He certainly fills both those bills. So I really want to thank Zach for coming over. Great guy. He and I got to know each other a lot better, and this will definitely not be the last time you hear him on the What's That Like podcast. Thanks a lot again for coming, Wags. Really appreciate it. What I want to do now is transition to a friend of mine, Greg Shively. Greg has been to, I think, 34 U2 concerts in his life. And on a podcast where we're talking about a concert series, I think it'd be fun to hear from someone that's been to a lot of big time shows as well. So why don't we bring Greg Shively on the phone line? What's that, Bob? We're out of time. Sorry, Greg.
Again?
We'll get you another time. So that's it for this edition of the What's That Like podcast. We'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks' time with another episode. I've got some great guests coming up. I've just confirmed. Just let you have to wait and see who they are. Until next time, it's John Knowles. See ya. What's That Like is available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Search for What's That Like. Subscribe today and never miss an episode. Streaming is available at SoundCloud.com and on the SoundCloud app. Follow What's That Like at Facebook.com/What's That Like Podcast and on Twitter at What's That Like Pod. All opinions of the guests of the What's That Like podcast are their own, not necessarily the views of the host or the podcast producers. We hope you enjoy this podcast serving Central Illinois and beyond. Peace out!
Yes.
The scene my friend and I at work always talk about was where Norm and Cliff go off and they come back the next day and they each don't know what happened. Mm-hmm. They had an all-nighter and they come back, well, what did we do last night? He goes, I don't know. And they start emptying their pockets. And they're like, okay, hungry heifer. All right, pizza. All right, guess we took a trip on the train. And then it's like Weigel's tattoo parlor. And they start going like this, they feel in each other's arms. And then they find out they got a tattoo on each other's ass. You remember that one?
Yes, I do, actually.
And then they go in the bathroom and look, and Norm has God bless the USPS, and Cliff's is I Heart Vera.
Yeah.
And then Cliff goes, you want me to come over and show Vera? Yeah. I mean, that's just hilarious to me. That just kills me.
No, that reminds me of I just got back from Vegas a couple weeks ago, so that could have easily happened there.
Absolutely.